إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Last week we started Kitab al-Siyam from Zaad al-Mustaqni. We said that Zaad al-Mustaqni is one of the books of the Hanbali. Many of the scholars have relied upon it. It's taught in the madaris of the Hanbali. It's taught in universities and other institutes, and it's taught in the masajid as well. A lot of the scholars have explanations of this book. Obviously, some have been printed, like Ibn Uthaymin rahimahullah ta'ala, and some of them have been recorded. So it's in the masajid. Sheikh Salih al-Fawzan hafidhahullah has a sharh on it as well. Who's the author of Zaad al-Mustaqni? Al-Hajjawi, ahsant. Now, Zaad al-Mustaqni is a summary of which book? Al-Muqni'. Al-Muqni'. Not Mughni. Ibn Qudama, Muwaffaq ad-Din Abu Muhammad Ibn Qudama, has a lot of books طبعا in Aqidah, Usul al-Fiqh, and he's got books in Fiqh. Now he's a scholar. He was a scholar of the Hanabila. Died 620. From the books that he authored, or when we look at the tadarruj or the tartib of fiqh, he authored a book called Umdatul Fiqh. Umdatul Fiqh in the Hanbali fiqh. Now, Umdatul Fiqh is summarized, is similar to Zaad al-Mustaqni. It's similar to Zaad al-Mustaqni in al-Hajjawi. Obviously, it's summarized, and he only talks about one riwayah or one opinion in the madhab. It doesn't have a lot of adillah, evidence, and so on. Then the next level is al-Muqni'. So the first one that he authored was Umdatul Fiqh, and then the second level is al-Muqni'. Al-Muqni', and that was for the students who have understood and memorized Umdatul Fiqh, who are on the second level up. And then he authored Al-Kafi. Al-Kafi was or is a book, طبعا all Hanabila, Fiqh al-Hanbali, لكن Al-Kafi, he mentions different narrations, and he mentions different narrations or opinions in the madhab of the Hanabila, and he also mentions adilla, evidence, the evidence for each statement or each opinion. The fourth level is Al-Mughni. Al-Mughni. Now, Mughni is literally the highest level. It's a reference point, not only for the Hanbali fiqh, but even for also the Hanabila, the Shafi'iyya, the Malikiyya, and so on, and the Hanafiyya. So obviously it can't be a marji' for the other madahib, it's a marji' for the Hanabila. In it, he mentions the statements of the other madahib, and he mentions the ijma'at and so on. So this book, Zaad al-Mustaqni', is a summary of al-Muqni' Imam Ibn Qudama rahmatullahi alayhi. طيب. What's the evidence for fasting from the Quran and the Sunnah? Evidence from the Quran that fasting is wajib. أحسنت. كتب عليكم الصيام. كتب أي فرض عليكم. فرض عليكم. طيب, from the Sunnah. It's not a trick question. It's simple. بني الإسلام على 5 وصوم رمضان. طيب. How do we establish the entering of Ramadan? Entering of Ramadan. How many ways do we establish the starting of the month or the 3? طيب. First one.
The moon
If the moon is sighted when?
On a clear sky.
On the what? On the 29th of Sha'ban. On the 29th of Sha'ban.
The moon not sighted.
طيب, that's the first way. If the moon is sighted. The second?
The moon not sighted.
If the moon isn't sighted
On the 29th.
on the 29th, what?
Then we don't fast next day.
The sky is clear.
Mhm.
When there's clouds,
When there's clouds in the sky, what?
then you fast.
Then you fast.
Due to the weather.
طيب, if it's warm, we don't fast. If it's cold, we fast.
No.
It's foggy in that.
Yeah?
If there's something blocking from
Yeah,
you seeing
obstruction
the
of view.
Hmm.
then you hit the doubt, you don't get the doubt and you fast.
طيب. الآن it's the 29th and there's cloud up in the sky and it's foggy. We can't see the moon even if the moon was to appear. What do we do?
Fast the next day.
Fast?
The next day.
طيب, who agrees?
But is it according to the Hanbali madhab?
According to the author.
According to the author,
He says that you should fast.
you should fast. طيب. That's the second way of establishing the month. طيب, we're studying the book, so we go on the madhab. It's any other ways of knowing whether it's Ramadan tomorrow or not? So we.
What about if the other people,
Yeah.
The contradicts to you, though, right?
have we studied?
You said 3. You've mentioned 2 so far.
So you complete 30 days of the month.
أحسنت. فأكملوا عدة شعبان 30 يوما. طيب. طيب. What do we do if, as part of the Muslims, a group of Muslims sight the moon? A group of Muslims sight the moon. Is it wajib upon all of the Muslims to fast or not? According to the book that we're studying.
Surrounding countries.
Huh?
All the surrounding
Like, according to the book, the Hanbali madhab that we're studying. Huh?
Everyone should fast.
Everyone should fast. Everyone should fast. The Imam says it. طيب. طيب. Whose testimony do we accept? Or whose information do we accept? Huh? Al-Adl. And what is Al-Adl? Huh? Who's Adl?
someone who doesn't commit major sins.
Someone who's not majnoon, طبعا. Someone who's not
And does the wajibat.
does the wajibat and doesn't.
Doesn't do anything.
طيب. If a man sees, if someone sees, if a Muslim sights the moon on his own or on her own, goes to the court and the judge rejects his or her shahada or khabar, what is upon them?
Fast.
To fast. According to, what's the evidence for that? Yeah?
Fast.
طيب. At the end of Shawwal, at the end of Eid or Ramadan, if they sight the moon on the 29th, they sight the moon, what should they do? On the 29th of Ramadan, the individual who says he fasted on his own, or the one that started the fast on his own, sees the moon on the 29th of Ramadan, the moon of Shawwal.
He shouldn't fast because all other months other than Ramadan require 2 witnesses. So he needs someone else to also witness it. To
طيب.
stop.
طيب. طيب. What should he do then?
And he should fast. He should carry on fasting the next day.
But that means he's going to fast how many?
30.
Huh?
30.
He's going to fast how many?
30 days.
30 days. صح. What about if he ends up fasting 31 days? On the 31st day, what should he do? نعم, it's possible. If he started Ramadan, we don't have time for it. على كل حال, let's move on to the next مسألة. We're going to try to finish the book على كل حال. Last week we stopped at ويلزم الصوم لكل مسلم مكلف قادر. طيب. The Shaykh says رحمة الله عليه, carry on with the numbering. I think number 8 or something like that. 7. ويلزم الصوم لكل مسلم مكلف قادر. Now the Shaykh رحمة الله عليه is going into who the fasting is wajib upon. You might want to write this list down. Firstly, the things that we're going to study today, inshallah, who the fasting is wajib upon. Number 1. Things that we're going to study today, who the fasting is wajib upon. And then we're going to move on to issues to do with the intention. Secondly, issues to do with the intention. And then the third issue, or mas'ala, is who is exempt from fasting. The fourth issue is things that invalidate one's fasting. The fifth is things that don't invalidate one's fasting, lakin are disliked. Or the fifth one, things that don't invalidate the fasting. The sixth one, things that are disliked. Number 8 or number 7, things that one should avoid during fasting. The next one, the sunnah of fasting, different sunnahs that we should observe when fasting. Then, inshallah, if we get time, the nawafil, supererogatory fasting, and then i'tikaf. طيب, ويلزم صوم لكل مسلم مكلف قادر. The Shaykh says it's wajib upon who? The next mas'ala, the 8th mas'ala on the book, who is it wajib upon? The Shaykh says كل مسلم, or لكل مسلم, every single Muslim. What's the mafhum of that? What do we understand from it? Non-Muslims are not expected or required to fast. Not required to fast. More correct, or it's more accurate to say that it won't be accepted from them. Like it's expected for them to fast. And what's preventing them from their fasting being accepted is the fact that they're non-believers. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا مَنَعَهُمْ أَن تُقْبَلَ مِنْهُمْ نَفَقَاتُهُمْ إِلَّا أَنَّهُمْ كَفَرُوا بِاللَّهِ وَبِرَسُولِهِ. طيب. Yani Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says nothing prevents their sadaqah or their donations being accepted except that they disbelieved in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, in this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that their sadaqah won't be accepted only because of their kufr. So we understand from the ayah that if they did believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then obviously they become from the Muslims. But if a non-Muslim reverts to Islam during Ramadan, we're going to see this mas'ala somewhere along the line. Lakin, if they mathalan revert on the 15th of Ramadan, they don't need to make up the days that preceded or the 15 days that they were non-Muslim. Why? Because al-Islam yajibu ma qablahu Islam, it erases, removes that which was before it. طيب. The second condition, or the second condition for fasting to be wajib is that a person has to be a mukallaf. And mukallaf, we studied in Manhaj Salikin, is what? Mukallaf, someone who's a mukallaf. Two things. Baligh, aqil. Baligh, aqil. If someone is baligh and aqil, that means it is wajib for them to fast. As for fasting, or as for bulugh, there are signs. What are the signs of bulugh? How many signs first? 4. طيب. ها؟ طيب. طيب. So the first one you said Now we're talking about the signs of a person reaching puberty. We said that reaching puberty is a condition for the fasting. And if a person reaches of age, then it's wajib for them to fast. No two ways about it. The first sign,
Seeing pubic hair.
seeing pubic hair around the private parts. Second,
He has a wet dream.
wet dreams. A wet dream. If a person has a wet dream, it's a sign that they have reached the age of puberty.
And then if he reaches the age of 15,
If he reaches the age of 15 without any of the previous two having happened. Without any of these two occurring. Age is the age of 15. And
for the women is if the haze starts.
if the haid starts. طيب. And the second thing of mukallaf, or meaning, is that a person is aqil, a person is sane. If a person is insane, then they're not expected to fast, they're not expected to pray, or any of the other ibadat. طيب. Then the dalil is the evidence, the hadith, رفع القلم عن ثلاثة, the pen has been lifted upon 3. النائم حتى يستيقظ, the naim, the person is asleep until they wake up. وعن الصغير حتى يبلغ, the young person until they reach the age of puberty. وعن المجنون حتى يفيق, حتى يفيق. طيب. The third condition for fasting to be accepted, the Shaykh says, قادر. Qadir is a person having the ability. So it's wajib upon every single Muslim who is a mukallaf, meaning who's reached age and he's sane, and who is qadir, يعني able. The third condition for fasting to be accepted is that a person has to be able to fast. طيب. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as much as you can. And the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, مَا أَمَرْتُكُمْ بِهِ فَأْتُوا مِنْهُ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Whatever I command you to do as much of it as you can. So when it comes to al-qudra, the opposite to qudra is a person not having the inability to perform ibadah or perform the fast. Now this inability is of two types. The ajz, the inability, al-ajz, where a person is not able to fast, is of two types. There's a temporary one, so he's not able to fast but on a temporary basis. That's the first one. He's not able to fast but on a temporary basis. Mathalan, for example, someone has a cold, a bug, an infection which they're required to take antibiotics a couple of times a day, 3-4 times a day. That is temporary. For that individual, we apply the statement of Allah, وَمَنْ كَانَ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ. The one who is marid or traveling, the one who is ill or traveling, فَعِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ. Then let him make up another set of days, or let him make up that fast after Ramadan has passed. طيب. The second type is what? If the first type is temporary, what is the second type? Permanent. And the permanent is that marad that a person is not expected to recover from. وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ فِدْيَةٌ طَعَامٌ مِسْكِينٌ. Those who are not able to fast, then let them pay fidya, let them feed a miskin every day of Ramadan. Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu interprets the verse to mean the shaykh and the shaykha, the old man and the old woman, and also anyone who is also similar to them, whose illness is permanent. So for example, if a person can't fast due to old age, then when Ramadan finishes, are they able to make up the days that they fasted in Ramadan? La. If someone's got terminal disease, مثلا, for example, والعياذ بالله, during Ramadan they're not able to fast. After Ramadan, are they able to make up those days? La. So upon them is, for them is, they should make up those days. They should feed a poor person every single day. طيب. So when they're feeding a person, also similar to that is a person who's got diabetes. or persons whose kidneys get washed are washed 3 or 4 times a week. So they should feed a person for every day of Ramadan. طيب. When should they feed and how should they feed? When should they feed? During the month of Ramadan or after, at the end of Ramadan. Anas bin Malik radiallahu anhu used to gather at the end of Ramadan 30 masakeen, 30 poor people, used to gather them and feed them iftar. طيب. Or what a person can also do is every day they can feed a poor person. So مثلا, if you're in an area where, or in a location where you'll easily find the masakeen, then you can invite one over, or you can pay for one's iftar on a daily basis. طيب. Or you can feed a poor person every 10 days, or a group of 10 masakeen every 10 days, for example. So you'd pay out 3 times a month. 3 times. Any questions, please write them down, yeah? Write them down so you don't forget. Today we want to finish the whole of Kitab al-Siyam, inshallah. طيب. They can do it however they want. Lakin, what a person cannot do is, and it's important because a lot of people do this, so you pay attention. A lot of people, before Ramadan even starts, they send money over to a certain country, any country that they want to feed a miskin person or masakeen, and then they say, feed these masakeen. So they pay what they're meant to pay at the beginning of Ramadan, maybe the first day of Ramadan or even before. And that is not correct. Why isn't it correct? The answer, question to the sisters, why isn't this correct? Mathalan, Ali has got diabetes. Now diabetes, obviously if a person has diabetes, more often than not they cannot fast. So they're expected to feed a poor person every single day of Ramadan. Ali wants to send the money for this poor person to be fed at the beginning of Ramadan or the day before Ramadan. This is incorrect. Why? Ahsanti. The wajib hasn't started yet. مثلا الآن, can we pray Maghrib? لا. Lakin when Maghrib does come, inshallah we will pray, صح? Lakin can we pray now? Why? The wajib hasn't taken place yet. The wajib hasn't taken place yet, therefore we can't fast. That we can't pay the miskin. طيب. A person, we said that 10 illnesses of how many types? Not illness, like in the inability to fast is of how many types? 2 types. The first type? Temporary. What should they do? Make up the fast after the month of Ramadan. طيب. The second type? It's what? What is it? Permanent. طيب. We understand the examples. طيب. What should that sort of person do? Pay fidya. طيب. طيب. They should pay fidya for every day, صح, of Ramadan. طيب. Every day that it's wajib upon them, or every day of Ramadan?
Every day is wajib.
Think about it. Every day of Ramadan, don't forget Ramadan is wajib.
Every day is wajib.
Every day is
طبعا
wajib.
Ramadan is wajib. كتب عليكم الصيام. Every day of Ramadan is wajib. Should that individual fast every day of Ramadan, or every day that it is wajib upon them to fast? Is there a difference between the 2 sentences, the 2 statements? Same thing.
Unless he passes away.
If you pass it, you can't make out.
But he's ill, right?
Permanent or temporary?
لا, the permanent.
If he's planning to, for example, pray at the end of the month, but he dies during the month, then he only,
لا, just say he wants to pay every day.
every day. So that, yeah.
Is there a difference between the two statements?
No.
The sisters? I said, this individual who's got permanent, his inability to fast is permanent. He or she should fast every day of Ramadan. Or this person should fast every day that is wajib upon them to fast.
Every day of Ramadan.
Every day of Ramadan. نعم, إجماع between the brothers. Think. Concentrate on the wording.
You mean make up for the fast and in paying for poor people?
No, they can't make up the fast. They got permanent illness.
I mean paying for the poor people, right?
Yeah, paying for the poor people. Should they do that every single day of Ramadan, or every day that is wajib upon them?
Every day of Ramadan.
Every day of Ramadan. Sisters? Huh? Why? Yeah, فقهاء. صحيح, it's true. It's true. There's some days that may not be wajib upon the woman to fast. مثلا, a woman who's got diabetes. طيب. A woman who's got diabetes, 7 days of the month or 6 days of the month, she wouldn't fast anyway, صح? So would it be wajib upon her? لا, not fasting. Fasting isn't not the menstruating woman. لا, not the menstruating woman, because the menstruating woman has to do qada. So that's not a good example. The answer is right, like in a different example. Because after Ramadan passes, they have to make it up. She would have had to make it up, but because she's got diabetes, لا. مثلا, for example, someone who's got terminal illness, or someone who's an old person that can't fast, طيب, and they travel during the month of Ramadan. The days that they're traveling, is it wajib for them to fast? لا. طيب, مثلا, for example, they travel for 5 days. They go to Umrah, and they go for 7 days, مثلا, and Ramadan is 30 days. How many days would they need to feed a poor person? 27 days.
For the 7 days.
Oh, for the 7 days they would need to
No, other days.
take them away. Take 7 days. 7 take away 30.
23.
23 days. They need to do 23 days. They need to only pay 23 days. Why? Those 7 days, it's not wajib upon them to fast. You can use that as a riddle. طيب. طيب. As for the one that's ill, which is better for him, to fast or to fast, or to not fast and then make up the days after Ramadan?
Not fasting.
This is niqash because we've studied Kitab al-Siyam, and
Fast.
it's better that you interact and you work your brains rather than hearing for 2 hours. So I'm asking you questions intentionally. I can sit down and talk for 2, 3, 4, 3 hours. Okay, you get bored.
If they fast and that temporary illness makes it, if by fasting...
It's always going to be a temporary illness, isn't it? The marid that we're talking about, we're not talking about the marid that's the one that's temporary. Nothing got who has a bug.
So if he fasts whilst having that temporary illness and it makes it worse, then it's encouraged for him or her not to fast.
Okay. طيب, Hassan. طيب. Where else? So the first situation is that if it delays what? Your delays your recovery. طيب, in that case, you shouldn't fast.
If it doesn't increase, then they should fast because
أحسنت.
first it's easier to fast because everyone else is fasting,
Mm.
and other people might see that you're not fasting and have doubts about it.
طيب, أحسنت. طيب, let's write it down in sections. Firstly, if it's difficult for the person to fast and they're going to be harmed by fasting, then it's haram for them to fast. If they are going to be harmed by not fasting. If they are harmed by fasting, then it's haram for them to fast. مثلا, someone who has to take tablets for an infection to go away. An infection which can be terminal. So to take that, they need to take these antibiotics. For this individual, it's haram for them to fast because their fasting will cause harm. وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do not kill yourselves. لَا ضَرَرَ وَلَا ضِرَارَ. No harm and no harming. طيب. The second one is, if a person's recovery is delayed. If a person's recovery is delayed. So if he fasts, then the period that he will be recovering doubles or is stretched, becomes longer. In that case, it's difficult for them to fast. Like, if it's a difficulty that they can handle, then they can fast, as long as it's a difficulty that they can handle. Another one, if it's the same to them, whether they fast or not. Whether they fast or not. طبعا, if that is the case, then they should fast. If it's the same for them, then they should fast. If it's the same for them, then they should fast. The fourth one, or category, if one of them is easier, what should they do? What should they do? If one of them is easier, if it's easier for him to fast, or if it's easier for him to break his fast, which one should he do? The easier one. They should take the easier option. The Messenger ﷺ was always faced with a situation. If he was given an option, he would always take the easy one. طيب. So if a person is able to fast, then they should. Even if it doesn't harm them, as long as it doesn't harm them. Because, as the brother said, it's quicker getting the wajib over and done with. Second, because you might actually end up delaying it and not making it up any time after Ramadan until another year passes. Also, the reward of fasting in Ramadan is greater than the reward of fasting outside of Ramadan. Also, the reward that a person does or the ibadah that a person does during Ramadan is greater than the ibadah that a person does outside of Ramadan. The same categorization can also go for the traveler. So if a person is able to, if a person is traveling and they're able to fast and it's not difficult upon them, and there's no harm upon them, then it's better for them to fast. Based on the reasons that we mentioned just now. That it's quicker for them to get their wajib over and done with, there's more of a reward and so on. طيب. If it's difficult for the person to fast when he's traveling, then also it's sunnah for them to فعدة من أيام ومن كان مريضا على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر. If it's difficult for them to fast, then it's a sunnah to break the fast or to not fast. طيب. The Shaykh says وإذا قامت البينة في أثناء النهار وجب الإمساك والقضاء على كل من صار في أثنائه أهلا للوجوب. Adam, read that out in English, please.
When it starts,
وإذا قامت. Second page, I believe.
the women fast and make up the day if during the day they became deserving of it, of this obligation. The compensating of both Martin ended, or they were traveling and arrived while not fasting.
طيب. The Shaykh rahmatullahi alayhi says, in this mas'ala he's talking about if a person or if fasting becomes wajib upon a person during the day, number one. Or if they come to know of Ramadan, the start of Ramadan during the day. If they come to know of Ramadan during the day. Or if they, in the morning or the earlier part of the day, if they had a valid reason for not fasting, and that valid reason expires, what should they do? That's the mas'ala that the Shaykh is about to talk about now. So the Shaykh says, وَإِذَا قَامَتِ الْبَيِّنَةِ مثلا, if the fast that is wajib, وَإِذَا قَامَتِ الْبَيِّنَةِ فِي أَثْنَاءِ النَّهَارِ, if the evidence or if the clarification is understood, or if it's understood that it is wajib to fast, or the knowledge of Ramadan comes to us during the month of Ramadan, during the latter part of the day, or even after sunrise, the Shaykh says wajab al-imsak, it's wajib to abstain and refrain from eating. Secondly, it's wajib to make up that specific day. على كل, upon everyone, من صار في أثنائه أهلا لوجوبه, everyone who it became wajib upon them to fast during that day. And then he includes the haid, the menstruate woman, and the one that finishes postnatal bleeding. You'll understand more with the examples. مثلا الآن, it's the 29th of Sha'ban. We don't sight the moon. Therefore, tomorrow is what? Tomorrow is Sha'ban, 30th of Sha'ban. Or that's at least what we think it is. Someone comes to us during the day from a far off land and says, last night we witnessed the moon. So he's fasting because they witnessed the moon. And it's a country which is besides us, it's close. Therefore, we would have had to fast as well. So this individual comes to us during the day and says, last night we witnessed Ramadan and today we're fasting. What should we do as the Muslims of that land, or the Muslims residing in that specific location? This mas'ala is hard to picture this day and age, because obviously we have social media, telephones, communication and so on, where if a person hears something in one part of the world, it automatically reaches the other part of the world within minutes or seconds. However, the Shaykh is writing this and talking about these issues during a time where it would probably take 2-3 days, if not more, for the news to get to a certain land. طيب. So what should we do? If that does happen to us, if we're faced in this situation, what should we do, according to the Shaykh? Have you understood the mas'ala first? All of these issues that we're going past, the most important thing is that you understand the issue at hand. Have you understood the issue? What is the issue? طيب, Hassan, I'll repeat it. Go on.
If someone comes to them like around on the 30th of Sha'ban and they say that they're fasting.
They're fasting because they witnessed the moon last night.
What should the people do?
What should the people do? That's the mas'ala. Or, مثلا, someone who in the morning, they weren't of age, they hadn't reached puberty. Like during the day they reach puberty. It's possible, sah? It's possible. They reach puberty during the day. That sort of individual. What should they do?
Should abstain from
The
fasting.
Shaykh says two things. And also the haid, the woman who ends her menses during the day. So if a woman's menses ends at mathalan 12 p.m, she comes in this example. Or her postnatal bleeding ends during the day, any part of the day, then she also comes under this. We're going to see what she has to do or what they have to do. Also the musafir qadima muftiran. Also the musafir, the person who is travelling. When a person is travelling, they are allowed to what? Break their fast, sah? طيب. The Shaykh is talking about if a musafir who wasn't fasting, obviously, because he's travelling, comes back to the land that he resides in, comes back to his home. What should these people do? The Shaykh says, wajaba, it's wajib for them, al-imsak, to abstain from eating food, to refrain from eating. The second one is wal-qada, also to do qada. Qada means what? To make up the fasting or to make up that specific day. To make up that specific day. طيب. So the Shaykh says we should abstain from eating, even though they've already broken their fast, sah? Even though they weren't fasting in the beginning of the day. Why should they refrain from eating? Because of the sacredness of the month, the sacredness of the time. Hurmatul zaman. It's Ramadan. There's no reason at this particular moment for you not to be fasting. Therefore, abstain from food until sunset. Even though you've eaten during the early part of the day, even though technically you're not fasting. Sah? The second thing the Shaykh says, wal qada, that you make up the days that you've missed. Tab'an, because mathalan, if a woman ends her menses, or her menses finishes at 12 p.m, has her ghusl and everything, that day can she carry on fasting from there? No, it's not a trick question. Can she carry on fasting from there? La. So the Shaykh says she has to do what? Qada. Make up that day. طيب.
But does she still have to abstain from fasting?
Abstain from fasting according to the madhab. Yeah.
It's not counted as.
La. It's not counted as if she's fasting. Like she has to stay away from food.
So it's not the same.
La, it's not the same. She has to stay away from food, or the person, the musafir that comes in has to stay away from food. Like in their fasting isn't accepted. طيب. There's a second opinion on this mas'ala. طبعا there's khilaf in it, and that's the madhab. That is the madhab. The second opinion is, and this one's stronger, wallahu a'lam, that all of these people that the Shaykh mentioned, rahmatullahi alayhi, we categorize them into two sections. So right, making up fast and repeating the fast. Making up the fast, or a person who comes to know of Ramadan, you can use that as a title, or a person whose reason expires during the day of Ramadan, that can also be your title. Firstly, as for the person who reverts to Islam during the day, Mathalan, after Salat al-Dhuhr, a person takes his Shahada. Or a person or a person comes to know of Ramadan during the day. Or a person reaches puberty during the day. So these three. The person who accepts Islam during the day, a person who comes to know of the month coming in, in the morning, the early part, they didn't know that it was Ramadan. Like during the daytime, someone comes to them and tells them, last night we sighted the moon, and now it's Ramadan. Or someone who reaches puberty during the month of Ramadan. Afwan, during the day of Ramadan. During the day, from the days of Ramadan. For these individuals, they have to start their fasting from that point. For these three individuals, they have to start their fasting from that point. So it's not like they're refraining from food or abstaining from food. La, it's wajib for them to fast at that point. For example, فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْ. The one who witnesses the month, sights the moon, then let him fast. For this individual who he comes to know of the entering of Ramadan, or the entering of Ramadan, at that point, for him, that is the time that the month enters. Beforehand, it wasn't wajib upon him. Likewise, a person who accepts Islam during the day. Before Dhuhr, مثلا, he accepts Islam at the time of Dhuhr. Before Dhuhr, fasting wasn't wajib upon him. At that point, it becomes wajib upon him. Sah. From that point onwards, he starts to fast. Even though he's eaten during the early part of the day. Like, and his obligation starts from that point. The same thing for a person who what? A person who reaches puberty during the day of Ramadan. That individual as well starts their fasting from that point onwards. طيب. Do you understand the connection between these three? What is the connection between these three? Fasting became wajib upon them from that point. It wasn't wajib upon them beforehand. طيب. So that section we've already established. It's wajib for them to fast from that point onwards. Do they need to perform qada, make up those days? La, they don't need to make up those days. Why? Because they fast. Firstly, the first part of the day, it wasn't wajib upon them. The second part of the day, they've already fasted. The second section for this mas'ala, the second group of people is a woman whose haid finishes during the day. A woman whose menses finishes during the day. طيب. Is it permissible for these two to fast in the morning while they're on their haid? La, it's haram. The third one, a person who was ill during the first part of the day, lakin they feel better and they are cured during some part of the day. The person that was ill, lakin during some part of the day they are cured, so they feel better. And they have the ability to fast. The fourth person is a person who was traveling, who already broke his fast because of traveling, and then comes back to his home. So the reason why he broke his fast was what? Traveling. Is he traveling now? No. La. For these four individuals, or anyone like them, they do not have to abstain from food. They do not have to abstain from food. They do not have to fast from that point onwards. Lakin they have to make up the days. They have to make up that day and the days that they have missed. Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu says, "Man akala awwal an-nahar falyakul akhirahu." The one who eats in the beginning part of the day, let him eat in the latter part of the day. طيب. What is the reason what combines these four individuals? Hassan, they had a rukhsa, concession. They were allowed to break their fast from the beginning, but it wasn't wajib upon them. And they had a valid shari'i reason to not fast. Therefore, they carry that shari'i reason, that reason which was a valid reason for them to not fast, they carry it with them till the end of the day. Till the end of the day. طيب. So we said they don't have to abstain from eating and drinking and any of the other things that break a person's fast. طيب. How about if a person, any one of us who isn't traveling, who is wajib for him to fast, decides to break his fast during one of the days of Ramadan? مثلا it's Ramadan, we're now in the 5th day of Ramadan, and طبعا it's wajib for us to fast. He's a Muslim, he's able to fast, he's not ill, and he's got the he's able to fast, he's a mukallaf. And then all of a sudden he decides to break his fast. He says, I'm going to break my fast intentionally. No valid reason. Intentionally breaks his fast. What should they do? What should that individual do? They've eaten already, so they can't carry on their fasting. Make up that day. طيب, what else?
You should carry on fast the rest of the day.
Fast the rest of the day. Abstain from eating or drinking the rest of the day. So we don't say just because you've broken your fast and it's haram, then carry on eating and make up that day. Like from that point onwards, it is still haram for him to eat, even though he's not fasting. Al-jaza'u min jins al-amal. Al-jaza'u min jins al-amal. So even if he wanted to fast, or even if he wanted to eat, then we still say it's haram for you to fast. Then every time you eat, you'll be sinning. طيب. Can someone summarize this mas'ala? The last mas'ala. Well, summarize for me those who it is not wajib for them to abstain from eating, like and they should start their fasting from there onwards.
If you have a rukhsa, then the rukhsa goes away because it becomes that it goes away wherever it was.
The rukhsa
Yeah.
goes
For
away.
example, if it was the menses and then it stops, the rukhsa basically stops. When they stop traveling, then it becomes wajib and then they don't have to complete their fast for that day.
They're not fasting anyway.
Yeah, so they don't have to fast. They can finish the day.
They can carry on eating during that day. They don't have to abstain from food, refrain from eating, sah? And then they make up.
They make up for it after Ramadan.
طيب. The other set of people,
So people who fasting wasn't wajib on them
it wasn't wajib upon them.
during the day, it became wajib for them.
During some parts of the day, it became wajib upon them. Also, like Yom Ashura, it was wajib in the past. So when when some of the companions woke up in the morning and they weren't fasting, and the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam told them that it was Ashura, the Messenger commanded them to start their fast from that point onwards. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam commanded them to start from that point onwards. Like in the madhab that we're studying, the madhab of Hanbali says what? For all of these individuals, they should,
You should stop.
all of them should abstain from eating and drinking. Why? Due to the sacredness of the time. We're in the month of Ramadan, it's a sacred time, all of the Muslims are fasting and so on. And they also need to do qada, make up the days that they missed. طيب. The next مسألة ومن أفطر لكبر أو مرض لا يرجى برؤه أطعم لكل يوم مسكينا. We've already studied this مسألة. ومن أفطر, the one who breaks his fast لكبر due to old age or illness, لا يرجى برؤه, and it's not expected for them to recover. أطعم لكل يوم مسكينا, every day, or they have to feed a poor person every day of Ramadan, every day that is wajib upon them. ويسن لمرض يضره, and it's a sunnah for the person who is ill. The person who is ill, lakin is harmed by that fasting. The person who is ill. ويسن لمريض, and it's a sunnah for the person who is ill, even though he's harmed by his fasting. وَلِمُسَافِرٍ, and the musafir, the traveller, يَقْصُرُ, that is shortening his prayer, or that can shorten his prayer, then it is a sunnah. So the Shaykh is saying it's a sunnah if a person is ill that they break their fast. If وَيُسَنُّ لِمَرِيدٍ. Now, وَيُسَنُّ goes back to where? Goes back to breaking the fast. Yes. the person who is ill, lakin is harmed by his fasting, and also the traveller who has travelled a certain distance, then for them to break their fast, it is a sunnah, according to the Shaykh rahmatullahi alayhi. طيب. وَإِنْ نَوَى حَاضِرٌ صِيَامَ يَوْمٍ. If a person who is, مثلا, a person is resident, وَإِنْ نَوَى حَاضِرٌ, he is a resident, lakin he intends, and he's fasting, or he intends to fast, like also he's fasting, ثُمَّ سَافَرَ, and then during a certain part of the day, he becomes a traveller. ثُمَّ سَافَرَ فِي أَثْنَائِهِ, during a certain part of the day, he becomes a traveller. فَلَهُ الْفِطْرِ, then it's permissible for him to break his fast. Is that masala understood? واضح. If a person is, مثلا, if you're in your hometown, and then all of a sudden someone says, let's go to another city or come to another country with me quickly, immediately, then you're allowed to break your fast. طيب. The Shaykh is now going to go on to types of individuals who have to feed a poor person, and also qada, to do also qada, to make up those days. The Shaykh says, وَإِنْ أَفْطَرَتْ حَامِلٌ, if a pregnant woman breaks her fast, يعني doesn't fast, أو مُرْضَعٌ, or a breastfeeding woman. So if a breastfeeding woman or a pregnant woman break their fast, يعني do not fast, خوفا على أنفسهما, whilst being scared for them, fearing for themselves, fearing that they'll run out of energy, or they'll be low on iron and they're not able to do anything, or even worse, then قَضَتَاهُ فَقَدْ, then upon them is qada. Upon them is qada. Why? Because they fear for themselves. So they're equivalent to someone who is ill. They're equivalent to someone who is ill. طيب. وعلى ولديهما, لكن if they fear for the child, or for the baby that they're breastfeeding, or the baby inside the belly or inside the womb, وعلى ولديهما, if they fear for that sort of individual, or for this baby, قضتاه, they have to not only make up the days, وأطعمتا لكل يوم مسكينا, like they have to make up, not only they have to make up, like they have to feed a poor person every single day that they do not fast. Naam. Who remembers this masala when we studied it in Manhaj Salikin? Huh? What was wajib for her to do? Have you understood this masala first? A pregnant woman, breastfeeding woman, can't fast, fears for herself, for her life. The Shaykh says she has to make up the day. After طبعا giving birth, or after she finishes breastfeeding. طيب, she has to make up the day, or the days that she missed. Lakin if she fears for her baby, then she has to feed a poor person every day, and also make up the fasting. صح? What was the other opinion that we studied in Manhaj Salikin?
Ustaad, could you please send the brother to the back of the classroom?
Go to the back of the... Is there something there? Like, if a pregnant woman during the month of Ramadan cannot fast for whatever reason, طبعا for whatever reason, meaning whether she fears for herself or fears for her baby, and likewise the pregnant woman or the breastfeeding woman, if they can't fast during the month of Ramadan, there's another opinion which a lot of the scholars are upon, and it's narrated from Abdullah ibn Abbas and Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma, that upon them is to feed a poor person for every single day that they miss, and there's no qada upon them. Is that understood? If a person if a person during the month of Ramadan, a woman who's pregnant, breastfeeding,